Rapunzel. Once upon a time, a couple was spending each day waiting for the baby growing inside the mother's belly. One day, the wife saw some fresh Rapunzel lettuce growing in the witch's garden and said she wanted that lettuce more than anything. But her husband shook his head with a worried look. The lettuce only grew in the witch's garden, and there was no way they could buy it or find it elsewhere. As the days passed, the wife's face grew darker with worry and longing. Worried about his wife, the husband finally snuck into the witch's garden and carefully picked one Rapunzel lettuce. Then he hurried to leave the witch's garden before anyone could see him. "I have to get out before the witch notices." The husband's heart pounded with fear. But just then, a chilling voice rang out from behind him. "How dare you sneak into my garden? I will not let you get away with this." Terrified by the witch's sharp voice, the husband trembled and begged desperately, "Please, forgive me. My wife and our unborn child are waiting for me." The witch let out a wicked laugh, then made a terrifying deal. She demanded that once the baby was born, it be given to her. That, she said, was the price for the husband's wrongdoing. Sometime later, the day came when the baby was born. Just as she had promised, the witch came to their home, took the baby, and raised her in a tall tower deep in the forest where no one could ever reach her. And so, she named the baby Rapunzel. As time passed, little Rapunzel grew into a beautiful young girl with long golden hair. Since the tower where Rapunzel was kept had no door or stairs, the witch would always call from below and climb up by using Rapunzel's long hair. Rapunzel let her long hair down from the window, and the witch climbed up the tower using her hair. Rapunzel spoke with a sullen look on her face. She was filled with curiosity about the outside world and longed to run and play freely under the open sky. But the witch always warned her that the world was a scary and dangerous place and that she must never leave the tower. From that day on, Rapunzel spent her days alone in the tower, singing to herself and feeling lonely. Then, one day, a prince passing through the forest stopped in his tracks when he heard a beautiful, clear singing voice in the distance. The prince wondered to himself, who could possibly have such a beautiful voice? The voice belonged to Rapunzel, who was singing all alone by the window of the tall tower. Just then, the witch standing below the tower shouted up to Rapunzel. It was her signal for Rapunzel to let down her hair. The prince was startled when he saw the long, flowing hair come down from the tower. And the next day, he returned to the tower and, gathering his courage, called out softly. Startled by the unfamiliar voice, Rapunzel hesitated for a moment, but then let her hair down from the window. The moment the prince climbed up the tower and saw Rapunzel, he fell in love with her at first sight. And just like the witch had done, he called out to Rapunzel, sending her the signal to let down her hair. From then on, the prince visited her every day, sharing stories of the outside world, and little by little, Rapunzel opened her heart to him. And so, Rapunzel and the prince spent joyful days together, laughing and sharing stories. But one day, the witch discovered what was happening. The witch was furious that someone had entered the tower without her knowing, and she decided it was something she could never forgive. That night, in a fit of rage, the witch took a pair of scissors and cut off all of Rapunzel's hair, then cast her out into the forest. In the dark and unfamiliar forest, Rapunzel cried out in a trembling voice, desperately hoping for help. But no one answered her calls. The next day, unaware of what had happened, the prince came to the tower as usual and called out. It was his usual signal asking her to let down her hair. But he had no idea that Rapunzel was no longer at the top of the tower. The witch let down the cut-off strands of Rapunzel's hair. Just as the prince climbed high up the tower, the witch suddenly let go of the hair he was holding. At that moment, the prince lost his balance and tumbled through the air, falling straight down from the tower. He landed in a thorn bush below, and the sharp thorns pierced his eyes, leaving him blind. And so, blind and heartbroken, the prince wandered through the forest, lost and alone. Just then, a familiar song floated through the air. The voice was unmistakably the song of Rapunzel, a melody he could never forget. The prince followed the sound of the song, taking one careful step at a time. There, singing with longing in her heart, was Rapunzel missing the prince dearly. Without a moment's hesitation, the two ran toward each other. Rapunzel looked at the prince standing before her, and with a worried gaze, she gently embraced him, wondering what might have happened to him. Seeing the prince unable to open his eyes, Rapunzel ran to him, embraced him, and burst into tears. At that moment, as Rapunzel's warm tears touched the prince's face, a miracle occurred. He slowly began to see the light of the world once more. It was all thanks to Rapunzel's heartfelt tears. And so, the two who had found each other again returned to the palace and lived happily ever after. Meanwhile, the witch was punished. So she could never do evil again. Her magical broom was taken away, and she was locked away in the lonely tower to live all alone.